the Norman Conquest, arguably one of the most important events in human history, as it shaped the history of Britain, which, in turn, shapes the history of the world. This video will go over the Norman Conquest and its consequences. First, let's set the stage. It's January 1st of 1066, and Edward the Confessor is dead. This created a succession crisis in England, involving four major players, only two of which were related to Edward the Confessor, the other claiming England as a part of Denmark, and the final one, there was another one? Harold Godwinson. He was the brother-in-law of Edward the Confessor after marrying his sister. He was also the second most powerful man in all of England before the Norman Conquest, being the Earl of Wessex, East Anglia, and Hereford, controlling a large amount of wealth and territory. At some point, Edward the Confessor promised Harold Godwinson the throne, despite Edward's reservation towards Harold's father, Godwin, making Harold Godwinson our first claimant to the throne. Next is William II of Normandy, otherwise known as William the Bastard, otherwise known as William the Conqueror. He was descendant of the Viking Rollo, who alongside Ragnar Lothbrok sacked Paris so hard that the King of France just gave Rollo Normandy in exchange that he'd go away and keep other Vikings away. Also, William's great aunt was Edward the Confessor's mother, and Edward, like with Harold, also promised the throne to William before he promised it to Harold, with Harold even swearing that he would uphold William's claim to the throne. We'll see how that goes in a minute. Finally, there's Harold Hardrada, who is a stereotypical Viking Chad. His history could basically be summarized like this. He was exiled from Norway, fought for the Kievan Rus as a captain, then entered the Byzantine army as a member of the Varangian Guard, went back to Russia, returned to Scandinavia and took the throne of Norway and Denmark, and then aspired to take the throne of England to restore the North Sea Empire of Canute the Great. About that. Unlike the first two, Harold Hardrada didn't actually have any blood connections to Edward the Confessor. He wasn't even promised a throne, which is surprising considering Edward's track record so far. No. Harold Hardrada claims the throne based on lineage to Canute the Great, who conquered England sometime before and made the North Sea Empire which Harold wanted to restore. So he'd go down in history on the same level as his predecessor. And last there's Edgar the Etheling. He was Edward the Confessor's nephew or something, who cares, let's move on. So where were we? Yes, New Year 1066, Edward the Confessor is dead and a bunch of people want his fancy chair. The first to move is Harold Godwinson, who was made king by the Archbishops of Canterbury and York and the Witenagemot, England's parliament at the time. William had his invasion force ready by August, but he couldn't move because nature hates bastards, and so a bunch of nothing happened until September. When September came, Harold Hardrada, taking advantage of the wind blowing south, speed-runned his way to England and did the typical Viking activities of raping, pillaging, and eating magic mushrooms. No, I'm not kidding. Which prompted Harold Godwinson to also speed-run his way to York, going all the way from London to there in 4 days, in an era where such a trip would take weeks. Harold's sudden arrival surprised Harald, who was forced to meet Harold in the Battle of Stafford Bridge, leaving behind his armour and probably being high on mushrooms. Anyway, the battle began as you'd expect, with the English forces under Harold pushing Harald's Norwegians back to the bridge, where a single Norwegian with an axe, probably on some unholy megamush, held off the English for a time for the Norwegians to regroup, allegedly killing 40 Englishmen before being impaled from below by an English soldier with a spear and a sick sense of humour. After that hiccup, the English formed on the other side of the bridge and attacked the Norwegians, killing Harold Hardrada in the process, which resulted in the Norwegians being completely annihilated, including all those other people waiting at shore guarding the Norwegian ships. The Battle of Stafford Bridge was won, but just as the English started celebrating, Harold Godwinson received news that he wouldn't have liked. William had crossed the Channel. Once again, Harold rushed his troops like a madman, this time reaching London in a week where he briefly rested before confronting William outside of the town of Hastings. Harold intended to surprise William, much like he did with the now-dead Harold Hardrada. Realizing that this wouldn't work because William had functioning scouts, and that William was moving to attack Harold, the English set up on a highly defensible position atop the Senlac Hill, while William took formation at the fields below it. Fighting began on 9 AM on the 14th of October, with William trying to break through the English lines, which were reinforced by a shield wall. As you'd expect, this didn't work, but a dangerous, possibly campaign-ending rumour spread amongst Norman forces that William was killed in battle. Hearing this, and somehow understanding French, the English broke formation and attacked the Normans, only for the Normans to realise that William wasn't dead, who promptly cav-charged the English onto another, smaller hill, where they continued to hold until Harold Godwinson was struck in the eye with an arrow, killing him instantly. And so the English army began to fall apart, with the Huscarls, the elite royal guards of the English king at the time, fought around Harold Godwinson's body until the last second. The Battle of Hastings was over. William was victorious. Well, he would be if it weren't for Edgar the Etheling claiming the throne too, even getting the support of the Wittenberg mods, and continuing to fight a small campaign against William, but who cares? William then engaged in a brutal campaign of quelling rebellions and regional suppression, even salting a region so hard that it would make Cato the Younger proud. The Norman Conquest had major consequences to English and thus world history. It put a decisive end to the Viking Age, as Viking raids would fade out after this point. It placed England in the middle of continental European politics, as the Norman kings used English resources to support their claims to the French throne in the 100 Years' War. It shifted the English language from a primarily Germanic tongue to a more mixed Germanic and Latin language, and it shaped English culture with effects to this day. But what if this all went differently? What if Harold Godwinson, or God forbid the Giga-Chad Harold Hardrada, won? Well, I don't know. Ask What If Old Hist or Harry Turtledove for the answer. I'm out. Thanks for watching. Anyway, firstly I'd like to apologise for the mediocre audio quality. I'm working with a blue snowball here and my acoustics aren't exactly professional. But anyway, if you liked this video despite that, please like and subscribe for more content in the near future.